can you tell me, when did you realize that besides reproductive justice, you also want to focus on climate justice?
Sure. So in 2022, Pakistan was hit by one of the worst climate crises in country's history. It affected around 33 million people. And of the affected people, around 8 million were actually girls and women of reproductive age. There were 650,000 women who were pregnant, millions of, and they were menstruating girls and women. There were also girls who got their first period during that displacement. And since our work is with grassroots communities, a lot of the communities that we work with were heavily affected by those floods. So that's what actually brought us into climate crisis response, because we saw that our community, the communities that we work with, were displaced. And as you know, as an organization that's been working on menstrual health, reproductive health, whenever a disaster strikes, our first question is, oh, how are girls managing their menstruation? What are pregnant women doing? So our default was into thinking that. And then when we started talking to girls and women who were affected by floods, we realized that, they don't have any sort of menstrual products. Pregnant women are not getting the care that they need. Girls and women were delivering babies on roadsides, which put them at increased, risk of infections, and also like life-threatening, diseases, life-threatening risks for the baby and for the pregnant women. We heard from a lot of women that they had miscarried their babies because during that evacuation, right? Because they were walking for, some of them were had to walk for days to reach flood camps, and how the climate crisis response set by the government was completely gender blind. It did not account for needs and lived realities of girls and women. And whenever a climate disaster, strikes, girls and women are among the vulnerable group. They do have some gender specific needs that need to be addressed, and they're not addressed. The existing gender inequalities, they exacerbate. So this is what brought us into climate justice and climate crisis response. We set up our flood response, where we provided girls and women menstrual products. We provided pregnancy kits to pregnant women. We constantly were in dialogue with the government on how they can refer pregnant women, on how they can uh, create safe spaces for girls and women, because there were also a lot of cases of gender-based violence in these flood camps. So this is what brought us into the climate crisis response, and also, like, given now Pakistan is one of the most climate vulnerable countries in the world, which means that we're going, unfortunately, we are seeing a lot more floods, droughts, which is putting these girls and women at an increased risk of gender-based violence. It is putting them at risk of infections because of lack of access to wash facilities, lack of access to menstrual products, unintended pregnancies. And now we're also working in the policy advocacy spaces, where we're actually advocating for gender equitable climate crisis or disaster response in Pakistan.
I will always remember how you said in one of the videos that periods don't stop because of a climate crisis. I think that many people forget about this. Like they don't even consider that menstruation is a thing, when people are being evacuated or when they're in these camps. But in one of the videos, there is a woman who is speaking about how talking about menstruation is a total taboo, where they can't even mention that in front of the man, and where they go to wash their pads or like cloths either early in the morning before everyone wakes up, or late at night, somewhere really far away where no one can see them, so they could wash the cloth. And this is really dangerous, and it puts them at risk to, they can be raped or violated or harassed. So I think that this is something that many people are not aware of, and it's so great to raise awareness about this.
Uh, No, absolutely. And Veronica, I still remember during floods when we were fundraising for menstrual products. Uh, there was a whole Twitter campaign that said, "Why are you giving pads to women? If you're giving pads, also send shaving kits for men." Just the denial that people live, and how easy it is for them to just denounce the health related needs, the privacy, the dignity related needs girls and women have. Like, women don't choose to menstruate, and if we had choice, we would prefer not to menstruate, because it is a painful process, right? Like, who would choose to menstruate during a climate disaster? And also, I remember even around contraceptives, I remember so many, men asking, why do women need contraception? Why do they need contraceptives in the flood camps? And then look at the number of unintended pregnancies.
I mean, they need it even at home, so why wouldn't they need it in the camp, right? In one of the videos, I saw a woman speaking about how she's afraid of talking about her need to have these menstrual health products to her husband. And then she said that she can't even go to authorities who are providing other stuff like clean water or food because they're all males. So, is there a way how women can break this taboo and get the stuff that they need, to have control over their body, whether that's, contraceptives or menstrual health products?
I think that's a very important question, and also a very complex question, because uh, given that it is so stigmatized even in normal circumstances, right? That in a disaster setting, women also have this default that they deprioritize their own needs, right? Because that's what they have been told. Then the narrative is that women will manage, they will manage, right? So and they have deprioritized their needs. It's very uncomfortable for a woman in a conservative society to go and ask for a pad, and I think something needs to be done at the policy level as well, right? We need more women in the flood response, because what we noticed was that in the government's response, all the officers were male. It's important to have female officers where women can go and speak about their needs. Even in cases of harassment, for example, a woman cannot go to a man and say that, I've been harassed. It will be very uncomfortable for her to even go to a woman, right? But with men, she cannot go and report it. So I would say, for women to advocate this, I would just like to shift this burden to government and to men on how they can create those spaces for women to be more vocal about their needs.
And it's great that you're speaking about this, because I actually had this question. I wanted to ask you if you have any suggestions for policymakers with regards to climate action plans.
Uh, a, uh, the climate action, not only in Pakistan but across the globe, is gender blind. It does not account for the gender specific needs of girls and women. This needs to go into our policies, into disaster management authorities' action plans. Um, we need more women in decision making. I remember, I'll just give you an example. So I was in a meeting with the one of the districts commission at one after the floods. I was in a meeting that was hosted by the district, the deputy commissioner's office, and he had invited representatives from different government offices, and they were trying to make contingency plans for future disasters. They were trying to operationalize the district disaster management authority. The initiative was supported by UNDP. There were around 50 people in the room. So they invited two civil society organizations. There were around 50 people from the room. So there were three people from CSOs, two organizations, and the rest of the people were from the government. They all were men.
Really?
Every single of them was a man. And when we were talking about the disaster response, none of them talked about the needs of girls and women, because they don't know. They don't understand. They don't know if a woman needs, because this is not their priority. And I think that is a time when I felt that if I and my colleague were not in the room, the response of that district would have also been gender blind. So, it was us who said, but you also need to ensure that you're giving pads to women. You also need to ensure that there is proper prenatal care for pregnant women, contraceptives. And that's when I understood that it's so important for women. I always knew that it is important for women to be there, but I often imagine, so it might look like a very small change at a district level, but I often think if I and my colleague were not there, those men were not speaking about our needs, definitely. So it is so important. And I think something that we also highlighted is that it's important that from in next meetings, you also nominate women from your departments. So the government so women can also be there to represent the government, because maybe we cannot be everywhere.
So, for example, if you were speaking to the, let's say, Minister of Health of Pakistan, what would you tell him to do to include in these, like, 1, 2, 3?
Coordinate better with the Ministry of Climate Change. There is no coordination between the departments. So, and that's a huge challenge. Like, there's no coordination. Prioritize needs of girls and women during climate disasters. Understand that the needs of girls and women are different from those of men. So include menstrual products, pregnancy kits, include the regular visits of social welfare department officers, and they should be women, so that they can go and check on girls and women about their safety in the flood camps. There should be proper referral systems for girls and women who are experiencing abuse and harass, so that they can be referred for support. Engage more girls and women in decision making, and make it mandatory for in the disaster response, have female officers.
Thank you for listening. I hope this interview left you with a feeling that in spite of big challenges, we can all do something to make life better for women, nature, and the future generations. We can all be solutionaries. If you enjoyed this episode, click the subscribe button now. If you know someone who supports women's rights, who loves nature and animals, and who cares about the future of the planet and humankind, please share Nature Solutionaries with them today. And as for you and I, we can connect on LinkedIn today. For more information, visit veronicaperkova.com. I'm Veronica Perkova, and I look forward to talking to you soon.